Morning.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Joe. I am your instructor for Psych 170. So, this is our first lecture in the mini lecture series that we do for these asynchronous courses. And I will always try and get these out the weekend before the unit that you have to actually read this material in the book, because I feel like hearing this stuff before you actually have to read it and see it will probably be a little bit more advantageous to you. But either way, I hope you find this useful. If you end up with questions, obviously this format doesn't allow you to ask me questions directly in real time, but you can always email me. You can always message me in the classroom, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. So this lecture is about the scientific method and, well, the unit is the scientific method of personality. This lecture, I'm going to limit to the scientific method. And if this is stuff you know really well already, because I don't know, you've done it in other science-based courses before and you don't need it, well, it's up to you. However, I think I'm awesome and worth listening to. So give it a try. You never know. So the idea here is that this information could actually be useful in any science class, any intro-level science class, because this is stuff that is honestly the basis of all science. I don't care if it's geology, if it's physics or psychology or sociology, physical science, behavioral science, social science, doesn't matter, okay? This is the bones of science. And it is so freaking misunderstood and so freaking misused at the layperson level, at the average person level, that it's ridiculous. So I caution you against skipping ahead and trying to do the quizzes before the lecture, because the stuff isn't necessarily intuitive. Some of the terms that are used and stuff are unique to science, and they get used differently in day-to-day conversation, and they could probably confuse the heck out of you. Anyway, you'll see what I mean. Let's talk about it. So you'll notice I don't use a lot of really cool, funky graphics and other stuff. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, that takes a lot of time and editing and stuff. I did used to try and do that, and it's distracting. And two, it tends to slow the process down. You guys are in an online class because you don't have the time to be in a classroom, right? I got my master's degree online, got my PhD online. I get it, right? You're adults and you don't have the time to be sitting in a classroom, or for whatever reason you're not there. So let's get to it, get the information that you need to do well in the assessments and that you can turn around and use in your careers as you move on. So the first two things we're going to talk about are two different words: empirical and anecdotal. Okay? Empirical, anecdotal. Empirical is very simple. See, I got a dog laying over there on the ground, and he smells like bud. He smells terrible. Okay, right now he needs a bath. That is empirical evidence. It's a fact. Okay, I can see my dog. I can smell my dog. Okay? Empirical means that it can be observed in the real world, either with your sight, your hearing, your nose. You can taste it. You can feel it. Somehow, it is observable with your senses to be a fact. Okay, and the presence of my dog Crash is very observable. Okay, trust me, you know. And that's the type of data. Data is the fancy word we use for information. That's the type of data that we're looking for when we're doing sciencey type stuff. We are looking for empirical evidence, empirical data, stuff that can be observed. It doesn't necessarily have to be seen. Some things can be heard, some things can be, tasted, smelled, whatever, but it's got to be empirical. Okay, makes sense? It's easy, right? It's the simple stuff. The other one is anecdotal. Anecdotal is everything else. What your uncle told you on the beach the other day, what you heard on on whatever social media platform about whatever candidate said whatever about whatever whatever the news said, somebody else said about somebody else, and all that stuff is anecdotal. Anecdotal, coming from anecdote, actually it's the other way around. Anecdote comes from anecdotal, means non-empirical. Okay, so it's all that other stuff, rumors, talking, things people have heard, things people heard that other people heard, that kind of stuff. Now, anecdotal isn't necessarily bad. I'm not saying that it's lacking in value. That's not it at all. I mean, you know, a lot of our cultures are based upon the anecdotal lessons passed down from generation to generation. You know, especially here, the culture here, you know, there's a lot of anecdotal history that has gotten passed down. This stuff's very important. Okay. But for science purposes, empirical outrules anecdotal every time. But you'd never know it if you went on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok and listened to what people have to say. Okay, you can go out there and you can find tests to take to find out if you're dating a narcissist, to find out what type of personality you have, to determine what type of potato you are. I swear to God, that's what I saw. You know, you'll see these articles. I love these clickbait articles that say psychologists have uncovered this new life hack. Psychologist, I can tell you, no, we didn't. Okay, that's not true. The problem is a lot of times anecdotal stuff gets passed off as empirical at the media level. And the average person out there doesn't know how to tell the difference. And this happens at the social media level. It happens at the local news level. It happens at the national news level. It happens at the political level. There are plenty of cases that we could point to from both sides of the political spectrum, from both political parties, from our local news, national news, international news, where we can point to where that non-evidence-based, non-empirical based stuff is being passed off as information, and people eat it up because somebody that sounds like they have authority is saying it. So this can be a little bit dangerous, all right? When it comes to science, especially in psychology of adjustment here, when you go into your first chapter there, they're going to talk a lot about things like self-help books and stuff and how we don't really, right? Here's the thing. Some of them are good. Some of them are not. And they're not based on empirical evidence at all. Some of them are based upon whatever the heck the author heard from somebody or what they thought or what they just made up in their own head. And you could never know the difference because any schmuck with a computer can get published now. You can write a blog, you can write a book, you can write anybody. And so when you go in the bookstore, you go on Amazon, you see all these self-help books about how to get past this and how to overcome that and not a lot of it is based on empirical evidence. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the course, empirical stuff. Now, why do you care? Well, let's talk about Diet Coke, or Diet Pepsi, or Coke Zero, or any of those sugar-free types of things where they've put a sugar substitute. Okay. Of you watching, ask yourself, how many of you are under the belief that sugar substitutes like aspartame cause obesity, or cause cancer, or cause heart disease? Okay. I know of the 30 some of you in this class that the majority of you have heard that. I know I've heard it. I hear it all the time. I heard it just the other day. I'm a competitive bodybuilder, and I have to, when I'm getting ready to compete, I have to get down to a very low body fat percentage. And I switch out to artificial sugars when I'm doing that to lower my sugar intake. And it's this whole thing. Don't do it. It's a stupid hobby. But this girl came up to me the other day and go, "What are you drinking? Diet Coke?" I said, "Mm-hmm." She goes, "Oh my God, you're going to get fat." I'm like, "Really? Like, where did you get that from? Someone asked you, where did you get that from? Where did you hear? I know where I heard it from. Where did you hear it from? Chances are you heard it from somebody, either you heard it from a friend or somebody like I just did at my other job, or you heard it on the news, or you heard it in some article that you saw on the internet, or if you're old like me, you read it in an actual magazine or newspaper or something like that. But where the heck did that come from? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't. There's no empirical, the word means, there's no empirical data showing that artificial sweeteners cause cancer and artificial sweeteners cause obesity. There's nothing. There are studies out there that link obesity with artificial sweeteners and link or relate cancer with artificial sweeteners. Joe, didn't you just say that? No, that's not the same thing. And you may think that I'm trying to play words with you here, but I'm not. Because showing a relationship between two things isn't the same as showing that one causes the other. I'll give you an example. Okay. Have you ever seen the person who goes into freaking McDonald's and orders 37 Big Macs and all the fries they have in the building and a Diet Coke? Right? And we joke about, right? It's like a common comedian's joke, right? Right? And a Diet Coke. Well, here's the thing. They have done studies. They did studies back in the 80s and early 90s that showed that people who are obese also tend to be the people who use these artificial sweeteners. Here, think about what I just said. People who are obese tend to be the people who use these artificial sweeteners. Duh. Right? Because who else is going to want to use them? Right? Builders. The fact of the matter is, I can give you reasons off the top of my head right now why that link could be found. Here's one. Perhaps people who are obese want to not be obese, and they've decided to switch to artificial sweeteners to lower their sugar. Okay, here's another one. Perhaps people who are obese, like our McDonald's joke that we were just talking about, perhaps somebody who was obese thinks because they've changed to artificial sweeteners that they can kind of go hog wild on the rest of their diet, or they haven't made changes in the rest of their diet, because just changing to aspartame isn't going to make you thin, right? You still got to change everything else, but maybe they feel like they've got free license to do that. I don't know. Okay, I'm just pulling those things out of my head, but I'm just telling you there's potential reasons for that relationship to exist. But they have never found an actual causal link, meaning one causes the other. They've never found a causal link between artificial sweeteners and obesity. Never found a causal link between artificial sweeteners and cancer. Okay, please feel free to go research it. I promise you, what you will find is correlational studies, not causal studies. And yet, I know for a fact you've heard this before. Right? What the heck? How did that happen? That's anecdotal data. Okay, somebody somewhere way back when reported that there was a causational link when there wasn't. And it got picked up and carried around and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. And now it's part of a social consciousness and people believe it. There's kind of a danger to anecdotal versus empirical evidence, because believing something anecdotal can affect the way you live your life. It can affect the way the choices you make for your health. It can affect the choices you make for your mental health. It can affect your relationship choices. I mean, I know this sounds like a joke, right? But you take the wrong test put together by who knows who on Facebook that says your partner is a narcissist, and they're not, right? They're not actually a clinical narcissist, but for some reason that's the big pop psychology thing right now. Everybody's a narcissist, right? When true narcissism is actually kind of rare. Right? And you think you're a narcissist and, oh, I don't want to be with this person anymore. Maybe you're missing out on the best guy or girl in the world, right? This stuff can be dangerous, right? So it's important that you know the difference as we move forward between empirical and anecdotal. when we talk about science, we talk about research, we talk about our personality theories, we talk about stuff, we're going to be talking about empirical data. That means it was observed, it was seen, it was heard, it was smelled, it was felt, it was recorded, it was measured, and it can be proven to have existed. Okay, as opposed to what somebody told somebody. Right? Good on that? Cool. If you don't, send me an email. Now, let's talk about bananas. Every time since the late 70s, the stock market price value of bananas has gone up. High school level teachers' wages have gone up. Every time in the stock market, we've seen one go up, the other one's gone up. Okay, that's weird. Why is that? If you're sitting there right now trying to puzzle out some reason that the price of bananas affects teachers' wages, go ahead and stop, okay? Because it probably doesn't. Right? There probably is no cause and effect. We can do the study and we can go back and we can read the stock market prices, and we can see the recorded teachers' wages across the country. So we can go back empirically and look at it. We can see that it's true. But saying why it's true, we don't got that. We don't have that. And this is where a lot of people fall down. Because what we've got with the bananas and the teachers' wages is what's called a correlation. Correlation. Okay? That means when you've got one variable, the bananas, and another variable, the teachers' wages, and one changes and the other one changes, and consistently over time or repeated trials, every time one changes, the other one changes. That's what a correlation is. All right. In the case of the bananas and the teachers' wages, the correlation doesn't mean anything. All right. It just so happens that that's the way it's been. It's what we call a weak correlation. Correlations have a continuum. They can be very strong or they can be very weak. Right? So if the correlation is very strong, that means that there's something there. There's something happening between these two. If it's very weak, it could be an accident. Okay, we use statistics and math, and chi-square, and all sorts of statistical analyses for that are way beyond the scope of this class. If you keep going in psychology, eventually you're going to have to know that stuff, but you don't need to know that for right now. All you need to know is that a correlation can be strong or it can be weak. Right? So in other words, the relationship between the two, they could be brother and sister, or they could be like, your Hunai cousin from, the island over who you're not really related to. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at a correlational study, you might think to yourself, oh, well, this doesn't mean anything. Well, that's not true. The vast majority of scientific studies are correlation. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about it in just a second. But what we're looking for is strong correlations between the two. Let's talk about another one, correlation. Let's say there's a teacher out there, and she just happens to notice that every time she turns down the temperature in her room, the students' grades go up. She turns down the temperature, the grades go up. She's discovered a correlation between the two. Can we say that the temperature affects the students' grades? No, we can't. And maybe you're going, well, how is that possible? I'll tell you why. Choose bananas first. Let me give you a reason why that might be real. Again, pulling this out of my ear. I don't have a reason to believe it. Let's say that every time the price of bananas has gone up, it's because the economy has been really good, because we have had people in the White House or who've made really good decisions financially for the country, and everybody is doing really well. And so the price of bananas has gone up, along with the price of all the other fruit. Right? And because of that environment, teachers' unions have also been able to negotiate for higher contracts for teachers. Okay. Does that make sense? I mean, again, I just made that up, but does that make sense? Sure, that's a possible reason. Okay. Do the bananas and the teacher's wages, are they directly related? Not really. They got this other thing that's really kind of affecting them, right? We don't know. So let's go back to the classroom. She turns down the temperature, the grades go up. Did the temperature turning down cause the grades go up? We can't say that. Okay, you want to give me a reason that it's not? Oh, okay, let's say when you turn down the temperature, it's because it's a really warm, beautiful, sunny day outside. And the kids are all excited and they want to get done with their stuff quick so they can get out to the beach and go play because it's a beautiful freaking day and everyone's in a good mood and they've got more serotonin flooding their brain. And because they're in such a good mood and because they want to go play and they're excited about the stuff they're going to do, they perform better. Just so happens those are also warmer days, and yes, she has to turn down the temperature. Makes sense? I mean, again, I'm not saying that's why. It's a fake study. I just made it up. But there's a reason that happened. It didn't have to do with her turning down the temperature. It's very important when you look at a correlational study that you understand that one doesn't affect the other. We are not saying one causes the other. Okay? We are not saying turning down the temperature causes the grades. We're not saying the grades cause her to turn down the temperature. That's ridiculous anyway, but we're not saying that. What we're saying is we've observed that when one changes, the other one changes. We don't know why, right? So important, so freaking important, okay? Because the other type of study, an experimental study, does create causation or does infer causation, meaning cause and effect. If we did an experimental study to determine that the turning down of the temperature caused the grades to go up, we could make all sorts of changes in classrooms across the country, right? To try and improve students' grades. If we actually proved that one truly affected the other. You know how we have to do that? We have to eliminate all other variables. Remember I told you about the sunny day and the other things that could have caused it? You have to eliminate that. How do you eliminate the weather, Jackie? Well, here's the thing. You're going to have to do that study in a really, really hot place like Arizona. And then you're going to have to do it in a really, really cold place like Alaska. And then you're going to have to do it here in a temperate environment like Hawaii. You're going to have to do it all over the place with all sorts of different climates going on outside. You're going to have to do it with all sorts of different ages of students, all sorts of different races of students, all sorts of different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. You have to do it with all these different people so that you can eliminate all these other variables. And the only thing you're going to manipulate is the temperature. You see how that could get really expensive really quick? You see how that could get really hard really quick? Like technically, you couldn't even really do that study contained here in Hawaii, right? Because our temperatures don't really change that much. Right? And all the other variables. You have to eliminate all the other variables so that you can say for sure, I have eliminated every other possible influence on the grades. It has to be the temperature that does it. Okay. That's a big deal. Okay. That's hard to do, which is why most scientific studies are in fact correlational. Correlational isn't bad. Most scientific discoveries start off as correlational. All right. They start off in there's a relationship here. Let's explore it. Let's see what the heck is going on. They generally were looking for a strong relationship, a strong correlation between the two. And we see something like that. They're like, okay, let's put a little more time and effort into this. Maybe we can start building that experiment to try and see what causes what. All right. You guys clear on that? So let me give you a pop quiz. I got this pen here. I'm gonna drop it. I hypothesize, I guess it's gonna fall, right? Hey, what do you know? I don't work on the International Space Station. There's gravity. It fell. Okay. Surprise. I say that the pen fell because I opened my hand. Is that correlational or is it experimental? Well, technically, it's a really weak one, but it's an experiment. It's experimental because we know gravity is real and there's no other variables that could have caused the pen to fall other than the fact that I'm in a gravitational environment and I opened my hand. So yeah, the pen fell because I opened my hand. I can say that. It's not a correlation, it's a causation, it's an experiment. Does that make sense? Good? Okay. Why do you care? Why, okay, this stuff is all great, Joe. Why would you care? Because you are bombarded with this literally every single day. There is a huge amount of information out there. The internet, it's mainly internet now, on the internet, but also on TV, in the news, in movies. When people speak, different celebrities, the politicians, teachers speak, that is a bastardization of science. And if you don't know how to tell the difference, you're just going to believe what you're told. Okay. Let me give you a great example. Let's talk about one last weird thing. Let's talk about chocolate. I like chocolate. Everybody likes chocolate. No, not everybody, but my dog loves it. We'll kill him though. How many of you have heard out there in your doings in the world that dark chocolate is good for you? That dark chocolate is good for your heart. The dark chocolate has anti-cancer properties. The dark chocolate can actually help you lose weight. I've heard all of these things. I have heard and seen all of these things. I've seen it in magazines, in fitness magazines. I've seen personal trainers say it. I've seen it on TV. There was a schlep on TV who used to try and sell stuff all the time called Dr. Oz. I've seen him say it. I've seen it. I've seen it everywhere. Right? Have you seen it? Yeah. Research it. Look it up on Google. Just look it up. Is dark chocolate good for my heart? Dark chocolate good for weight loss? You'll find it. You'll find it. It's out there. Okay. And it's complete bull. The person who did that study, research this too. This is great. I love this part. The person who did that study was literally trolling the media. There's a scientist in Europe who was actually studying the way the media tends to distort scientific findings. Because what he actually found was a correlation, a relationship, not a causation, a relationship, between the fact that people who consume dark chocolate tend to also be people who don't have heart disease. Okay. And it wasn't that strong of a correlation either. It was like a weak correlation, could have been accidental, but he found it. And so his article was something like the statistical relationship between a certain percentage of cacao dark chocolate with coronary artery disease in adult human females, or something like that, right? Then he called all the news media outlets and he said, I found this. Because that's what you, believe it or not, that's what you do when you're doing scientific research that you have been given a grant to do. You have to call the media and tell them, hey, look, I found this. Do you want to report it? And when he said that, the media, all their eyes glazed. Right? What did you say? The statistical analysis of what now? And so he explained the study to them. And so they're like, oh, so you mean that eating dark chocolate will keep you from having a heart attack? He said, no. I found a statistical correlation at the 0.05 alpha level that wasn't, it was slightly statistically significant, but we'd have to run like a chi-square and an ANOVA analysis. Like, yeah, whatever, science boy. Because that doesn't get clicks. That doesn't get likes. That doesn't get people to watch it. But if they take what he said and put the headline as scientists in Europe finds that dark chocolate can fight heart disease, well, people are going to like that. And I have seen that information run in everything from Cosmo magazine to Facebook to special healthy dark chocolate being sold in stores. This is massive. About a year later, he came out and he went public with the fact that, hey, look, I was doing this experiment. I basically did this experiment on the entire world. And this is crap. Doesn't matter. It's already out there. It's already out there, and people still believe it. Okay. Why do you care? Because decisions you make about your life could be based on bad science. Okay. It is incumbent upon you to be a critical consumer of information. I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. I don't care what you think about the vaccine. I don't care what you think about anything, really. What I care about is that when you're getting your information from wherever you choose to get it, you know how to tell the difference between empirical and anecdotal, and how to pull actual evidence away from somebody else's opinion. Okay. The fact of the matter is, over the last couple of years, when COVID happened and stuff, this is some of the worst misuse of scientific terms I've ever seen. And people keep screaming, follow the science. Both sides kept screaming, follow the science, follow the science. And both of them were bastardizing what the science was actually saying. Again, I'm not going to weigh in on where I land on all that stuff because my opinions are absolutely not important. But it's very important for you when you're out there, when you're reading your textbook and we're talking about, well, this theory says this, and this theory says that, but this theory doesn't have an empirical basis, and this theory does have an empirical basis, that you're able to take a double step back and say, but it doesn't have an empirical basis, where are you getting this from? Who told you this? It's just how you feel. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, because something's not empirical doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. It could be right, but there's no evidence backing it up, is all I'm saying. Okay. We all know OJ killed his wife, but we didn't have the evidence. All right. So anyway, guys, hey, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it kept you awake a little bit. Please feel free to hit me up with any questions you have. And you can always go and Google anything I just said, because I Google it right before I say it, just to make sure it's out there. All right, guys. Hey, I love you. I'll see you in class next time.